iPhone 5S versus Moto G5 Plus. That's coming up right now. Let's go. So what is up, guys? This is Nick here from Everything Tech, help you to master your technology, and welcome to the iPhone 5S versus the Moto G5 Plus. Now the intentions of this comparison are clear. These are both budget devices, the iPhone 5S only being a budget device because it is older now, 100 to 200 bucks. I don't recommend you pick this one up anymore over some of these great budget Android smartphones these days, or even if you like Apple and you don't like Android, the iPhone SE is a better choice for the money than the iPhone 5S if you ask me. But let's just see how this old boy compares to the Moto G5 Plus. So let's go ahead and boot them up to get things started in 3, 2, and 1. And let's talk a little bit slightly about specs here, not too much in depth here. We do have an A7 chipset, 1 GB of RAM here, iOS 10.3, as well as, a 4-inch retina display here. For the Moto G5 Plus, we do have a 5.5-inch full HD display, a Snapdragon 625 CPU, that's an octa-core chipset with 2 GB of RAM. You can also get a 4 GB of RAM version of the Moto G5 Plus, making this an incredible value at under $300, whereas 5Ss can be found from anywhere from $100 to about $250 if you go for the highest storage capacity and you buy a brand new one. So the 5S is not too pricey anymore these days, but you can see that it is starting to get a little bit old, but it does still beat the Moto G5 Plus to the home screen because Motorola decided to throw in the Hello Moto animation to slow down their boot process. So the iPhone 5S is running iOS 10.3 here, not 10.3.1. I haven't updated it in a little bit of time here, but you can see iOS 10.3. The .1 release is not a speed increase, so that shouldn't matter here for this video. Over here on the Moto G5 Plus, we are rocking out with a pure looking version of Android 7.0. Not quite Pixel-like here, but you can see Android 7.0 here for the Moto G5 Plus, making both of these devices extremely up to date here. So I lined up a similar amount of apps, the same apps. Let's go ahead and run through these applications to see which one does a better job in terms of performance. Now I'm going to go ahead and clear the RAM here on the iPhone 5S. I'm going to go ahead and clear the cache here for the Moto G5 Plus. So if I go into storage here, I go into internal shared storage, go to cache data here, and I'm going to clear the cache there for the Moto G5 Plus to make this a little bit more fair. Let's go ahead and go into AppyGeek on both devices, both connected to the same Wi-Fi network. You can see the Moto G5 Plus well over a second faster, so pretty fast device here for its price point in the Moto G5 Plus. Let's go ahead and hit home, and let's go into Instagram. Missed that one, accidentally tapped it on the Moto G5 Plus. And you could see Instagram well ahead here for the Moto G5 Plus. And let's go over here into Twitter. And we should see similar results across the board here. You can see Moto G5 Plus well ahead of the 5S, and already it's showing why it's a better device in my personal opinion. So let's go home here and let's go into eBay. And you can see eBay well ahead of the 5S there for the Moto G5 Plus. Coming home, Amazon. And some people I know are going to say the 5S is still better. I mean, really? If it's obvious the Moto G5 Plus is just smoking it here. Let's go into YouTube right here. And you could see the Moto G5 Plus right there for the win. Coming home here. Let's go into Wikipedia on both devices. You can see the Moto G5 Plus coming home here. Let's go into Play Newsstand. And looks like the Moto G5 Plus would have took that one. Let's hit deny here. Don't allow. We got a whole bunch of notifications on this one. Let's go ahead and run that again. I don't like when it does that. Let's close that out right there. Hit the home button and let's hit play newsstand for both devices. And you can see Moto G5 Plus again with the win. So the 5S really hasn't won any round here yet. Maybe it'll win in gaming. Let's hit Lightroom here. And let me know if you guys want to see a gaming test between these two, a separate gaming test. I will not do a full-on gaming test here. Moto G5 takes that as well. Let's hit Uber. I really do think the 5S is going to win here on gaming though when we get to the game test in a second. See Moto G5 Plus, even with a notification faster than the 5S. Let's hit Subway Surfers here. And actually they're loading different versions of it, but hey, we're just going to do it for this test. And you could see Moto G5 Plus faster than the 5S on gaming. This might be a first, and I think it is. No, the 5S again beats the Android on the game test. Let's go ahead and tempo run. And let's see what happens here. Again, about the same. No, the G5 Plus actually took that one. So we might have to do a more in-depth gaming test if you guys want to see more about gaming. Let's hit settings here. And you can see that the Moto G5 Plus is ahead there. Let's hit home. Let's go into speedtest.net. And can the 5S take one of these? Yes, the 5S takes one round here. Let's hit home. Let's go into Safari and let's do apple.com here for both devices. Apple.com on the 5S. Apple.com on the Moto G5. Let's hit go on both devices. And you can see the iPhone 5S wins that one. Let's hit Motorola. So even Safari on the older iPhone 5S still runs pretty solid, not too choppy. Let's hit Motorola.com here. Motorola.com here for the G5 Plus. Let's hit go. And you could see Moto G5 takes it on its own website. So I call that one a toss up there. Now let's go ahead and run through these apps in multitasking. Appy Geek. And you see the 5S wins there. Now I do have the 2 GB of RAM version of the Moto G5 Plus there. So it's not the quickest in multitasking. Let's hit Twitter. And you can see the 5S wins there. I'm sure the 4 GB of RAM version is a lot different here for the Moto G5 Plus. So let's hit Amazon on both devices in a second here, Amazon. And you can see the 5S again. So the 5S is faster than the 2 GB of RAM Moto G5 Plus in multitasking. I'm not shocked here because this phone has been disappointing in terms of multitasking, but I don't think this is the only reason to choose a Moto G5 Plus. Let's hit Play Newsstand on both devices. Let's come home here. Let's hit Lightroom. You can see about the same. Let's hit Uber. I'm gonna give that to the 5S. So we don't gotta keep running through these. The 5S is the faster multitasker here than the Moto G5 Plus, surprisingly, and that's because, you know, it just doesn't have great RAM management with that 2 GB of RAM. So the win there goes to the iPhone 5S. But that's enough talking about speed here between these two devices. If you're deciding to upgrade to the Moto G5 Plus, what do you get in terms of build? Well, the iPhone 5S does have a classic iPhone 5 series design. It's all metal, a very small screen in comparison to the Moto G5 Plus. I mean, if you look right there, it fits inside of the display of the Moto G5 Plus. So it's a very small screen. So you're getting a large full HD display here upgrade for the Moto G5 Plus if you decide to go with this. In terms of fluidity, the iPhone 5S actually feels pretty fluid on its home screens. Going into apps sometimes it does get a little bit slow. And I think overall the experience of the Moto G5 Plus, even though you see it in the speed test that the multitasking wasn't quite as good, the apps run a little bit smoother here for the Moto G5 Plus, and it just turns out pretty well here in terms of overall fluidity for the Moto G5 Plus. Now, the 5S also is a very fluid phone here, even in 2017, but I do think that I have to give the leg up here to the Moto G5 Plus. Now, this is just based on my experience. You might have experienced both of these devices and think something different. So if you did, go ahead and comment that down below. Now, both of these devices do have a fingerprint scanner, first generation Touch ID here for the Apple iPhone 5S, and then just a standard fingerprint scanner here for the Moto G5 Plus. This one is actually quicker than the 5S. Surprisingly, it's closer to second gen Touch ID in terms of speed. So I have to give that one to the Moto G5 Plus. And also this key is, navigatable. So you can take this guy down here. You can take these buttons off and put them on the home button here down below. So if you don't want those buttons and you think that's ugly having buttons and a button there, you can go ahead and take those off and you have actions on the home button, making for a more clean look on the Moto G5 Plus. Now, design is definitely a total preference, whether you like this design or this design. Honestly, I do think the iPhone 5S is a better looking phone. It would be nice if they made a slightly bigger version of this phone, like this size with this design, honestly, to be honest with you. And this protruding camera bump on the Moto G5 Plus is not the prettiest thing in the world, but it does have a comfortable feel with the Moto G5 Plus in terms of its design. Now, I do think the black one looks a little bit better than this gold Moto G5 Plus though. Let's go ahead and wrap this video up. Are there any advantages to the iPhone 5S over the Moto G5 Plus if you were actually deciding to make a purchase decision between these two? Well, I think the advantages of the iPhone 5S are that, it does have maybe a slightly better build quality around the edges. It might look a little bit better. Number two, I think that it's a cheaper phone right now. It's definitely a cheaper phone than the Moto G5 Plus. You can have it for less, probably $100 less than the Moto G5 Plus. So it wins there. It might get updates a little longer. I'm not sure about that. I do think that the Moto G5 Plus might be updated further than the 5S just because it runs a purer version of stock Android. The iPhone 5S though will get updates quicker than the Moto G5 Plus. That is a given. It will get faster updates. And honestly, if you get the 2GB of RAM version, this 5S does multitask a little bit better than the G5 Plus. It might have better gaming, but that's pretty much it in terms of the advantages that it might have here in my experience. For the Moto G5 Plus, there are quite a few advantages here over the 5S. Number one, you have a bigger battery on the Moto G5 Plus, giving you much better battery life. Number two, a faster fingerprint scanner. Number three, it also has a metal build on a bigger screen, so you do get a nice build quality for a price point that is unheard of. So this might be one of the best phones in its price category, if not the best that you can buy in terms of, you know, Moto didn't try to go ahead and make a device, you know, cheap or what they could. They tried to make the best device they could with what they have to get it to that price point. So it doesn't feel like a super cheap phone here in the Moto G5 Plus here. Also, you do get a better rear camera for the Moto G5 Plus because it shoots in at 4K, and outdoors the pictures turned out really nice here for the Moto G5 Plus. Also, you get expandable storage, which you don't get on the iPhone 5S, making this a lot more future-proof if you run out of storage on your phone frequently. Number four, you do get a full HD display, 1080p here, 5.5 inches. This is a phablet, 5.2 inches actually, excuse me. This is almost a phablet here. This is similar to the size screen of the LG G2, which was one of the favorite devices of a lot of people for all time. And number three, I do think, or five, you do get better cell quality. So you do get better phone call quality with Motorola on here on this phone. That's what I've experienced in my experience. And number six would probably be the fast charging. No fast charging there for the iPhone 5S. So that's pretty much going to wrap it here between my advantages here over the iPhone 5S. Which one would I pick? I'm pretty sure you've noticed throughout this video that I'm leaning more towards the G5, and that's the one I would recommend between these two. Now, if you're going to upgrade from the 5S to the G5 Plus because you don't want to, you know, get a brand new, you know, phone that is like 500, 600 bucks, I think you're going to be happy with this upgrade to the Moto G5 Plus. Now, if you just love Apple and you want to stay with Apple and you're looking for a budget smartphone, check out the SE. But that's going to end this video right here. Let me know what you thought of it down below in the comments section of this video. Click the like button for me. Nick here, helping to master your technology. Be sure to be well, and peace.